Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. Today is Friday, the 20th of August, 2021. These are the stories that will be under discussion during the course of the show. We will begin, ladies and gentlemen, with Pakistan's efforts for peace in Afghanistan following the takeover of Kabul by the Afghan Taliban. Our Pakistani ambassador in Kabul has met with Hamid Karzai as well as Abdullah to discuss efforts for stability in Pakistan. Also, you know that Ashraf Ghani from the UAE also said that he favored these talks between Karzai and Abdullah. Also, at the same time, the Pakistani embassy in Kabul is arranging the evacuation of 350 foreign nationals, Pakistanis and Afghans on 2 special flights by the PIA. The embassy has also made arrangements at its compound in Kabul to continue to extend consular services for the Pakistanis who are there, as well as the Afghans and other foreigners. This is going to be our leading segment. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking about China's increasing role in the region after the pullout of US troops from Afghanistan. What impact is all of this going to have as far as the rivalry between China and the United States of America is also concerned, and what is its impact going to be on South Asia now that China will, of course, strengthen its grip in the region and also strengthen its relationship with the Kabul. This is going to be our second segment. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking about the 50th martyrdom anniversary of Rashid Minhas Shaheed. He was a pilot. He was born on the 17th of February 1951, and on 1971 he defended his country and prevented one of his seniors from crossing the border into India and obtained Shahadat. Then we will be talking about the recent incidents that have happened in Pakistan, the latest being what happened at the Minar-i-Pakistan, and victim blaming. Why is it that whenever any such incident happens, 1 or 2 days later, everybody on social media especially, or people start blaming the victim? Is it really the fault of the victim, or do we need to introspect as a society? This is what we are going to discuss as well. Then we will be talking about Prime Minister Imran Khan, who has lauded the efforts of a brave policeman, Constable Jamal Kalhodo, on the Pakistan Day that happened on 23rd of March this year, for saving a man who fell dangerously close to the platform as a train passed through the railway station. You can see the video in the parallel window. And of course, this is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our first story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns Pakistan's efforts for peace in Afghanistan, and also to repatriate the people, whether they be the Pakistani nationals or they be the Afghan nationals, journalists, or also the foreign diplomats, for which Pakistan has been lauded by the international community as well. At the same time, there are different developments that are also occurring in Afghanistan. How important is Pakistan's role, Pakistan embassy in Kabul's role, as far as the evacuation of these people is concerned, and also to strengthen the ties between Pakistan and Afghanistan, the current government there. We've been joined by Dr. Salma Malik, who is a foreign affairs expert. Dr. Saiba, thank you very much to have joined us. It's a pleasure always to have you in our show. Ma'am, Pakistan and Afghanistan are, of course, brothers. They are two countries that are not only neighbors but have also brotherly relations. Despite in the past the ups and downs that we have seen with the previous governments, currently, how do you foresee the relationship between Kabul and Islamabad in the whole context of also the peace efforts that Pakistan is moving forward with, and the efforts that Pakistan is also going forward with as far as evacuating the different nationals is concerned?
Thank you so much, Umar. Pakistan-Afghanistan relations, as you've also pointed out, are not something which are based on temporary issues or transient issues. We have had a very long history of relationship, and that relationship has seen many upward and downward swings. Yet the fact is that we are two close neighbors right next door to each other. We share an ethnic group and a very strong ethnic affiliation with one another as well. The current situation in Afghanistan, as we see for the moment, despite the fact that we do see that the Taliban have entered and taken Kabul without any resistance. It has been a peaceful transition so far. Yet the fact is that neither have the Taliban fully declared what kind of governmental setup that they're going to have, but they're also in negotiation with their other partners, such as Hamid Karzai as well as Abdullah, and there could possibly be more included in this situation. So that step towards an inclusive government is something that might
Now,
come
when you
about.
talk of an inclusive government, Dr. Salma Malik, how important are also the talks that our ambassador in Kabul is having with Abdullah and Hamid Karzai as far as bridging the gaps between the different factions in Afghanistan is concerned?
Right. Omar, the Pakistani government, as well as Pakistan's ambassador to Kabul, our special envoy to Kabul as well, and previous ambassadors have all been dedicatedly involved in negotiating with the various Afghan factions and talking to them. And for once, we have tried very hard and very successfully to have an open-ended dialogue with all of Afghan political leadership across the board without any issues about religion or secularism or from which ethnic background, etc. This leadership comes, because Pakistan's interest by and large is to have a stable, strong, and peaceful Afghanistan right next to it, so that there is no spillover effect of conflict if it may happen in a worst case scenario into Pakistan. But besides that, Ambassador Mansoor or our other ambassadors, our special emissaries who have been involved in Afghanistan so far, all of them, the Pakistani government by and large, has dedicatedly tried that we should have a multi-pronged dialogue, a multilateral dialogue with Afghan groups, so that the best possible solution, an inclusive solution, comes out, and no one accuses us that we are siding with one government or another government, and the best recipe that can come out for Afghan people comes forth, because again, as I said, a stable and peaceful Afghanistan is in the best of Pakistan's interest, and we would love to have a country which is progressing, which is peaceful, and in where the nationals of that country feel safe and secure. Unfortunately, if there's a civil war kind of situation or any unrest that people feel in Afghanistan, as we have seen at the moment as well, the immediate pressure of that would be on Pakistan to secure these people, provide them visa, humanitarian aid. And we already know that there's a huge number of Afghan nationals residing in Pakistan since the late 1970s, who have nowhere to go back to. And in case
All
there's a
right. Now,
fresh
Dr. Saba, let's talk about this current government of, I mean, not the current government, of course, but the current leadership of the Afghan Taliban that is sitting in Kabul as we speak. There have been different pledges that have been made by this Afghan Taliban spokespersons or the leadership, that they say they will give amnesty to their rivals. They say that the women will be given their due rights, will be allowed to work. Of course, they have not talked of burqa, but they have talked of wearing the hijab. The women are still working, as we have seen in certain images. The girls are going to the school. Also, they've said that their country will not be used, their territory will not be used against any neighboring country. How important are these pledges, and how much do you feel that the Afghan Taliban's government can maintain these pledges over time?
Right. I think these are very important for starters. Uh, just to start with the women issue, the burqa has always been kind of taken as a mark of suppression by the West. In Afghanistan's rural or semi-urban culture, the burqa is a very common cultural dress, and that has nothing to do with the Taliban. It was always there, and yes, it has been kind of synced in with the Taliban's image, but that has been the case. However, the very fact is that even during these 20 years, when there was a lot of strong Western presence in Afghanistan, even the most emancipated Afghan ladies would be covering their heads and would be very modestly dressed. No one was outrageously dressed. There was no Western culture, so to speak, happening in Kabul or any of the mega cities of Afghanistan. So I don't think that that was something that Afghan women would find difficult adapting. However, this new generation of the Taliban leadership are also very much aware of this fact that they have to walk the walk with the rest of the world, and they cannot be as oppressive as the previous generation. And we have seen that there is a lot of difference in this generation. They're more media savvy, they're okay with taking pictures, they're okay coming before the camera. They have their women at home who are studying, their children are studying, their girls are studying. So those things do make a lot of difference. I hope they keep their pledges alive, and they honor them. The time is going to tell, but these peace feelers that Afghan soil will not be used for any harmful purposes for any of the neighboring countries or any other country is extremely important for us, because we have seen in the past that previous governments had harbored anti-Pakistan elements on its soil, and they had created a lot of trouble for the Pakistani government and administration. And we look forward to a point where none of those things would be repeated in a future governmental setup in Afghanistan.
All right. Now, how do you also see the Pakistani efforts to continue to repatriate the Pakistani nationals or the other nationals from Kabul, as has also been enunciated in the tweet by our Information Minister Fawad Chaudhry, that the flights are going to resume as far as bringing back the people from Kabul is concerned? Do you feel this is being seen in a very positive light by the West, by the other important countries that, of course, can have a say in the future of Afghanistan and also Pakistan?
Omar, on the 15th as well, when the Taliban took over Kabul, two of Pakistan International Airlines, the national flag carrier flights, were fully packed with passengers, including diplomats from different nationalities. And we waited for several hours on the tarmac to take off. And eventually, there were a lot of heroic stories around that fact. And this was a very, very precarious time for any of the international actors present on Afghan soil at that particular time, because anything could happen. Things could go south, and situation would have worsened for them. Yet we took the risk, and we are going to keep on doing that. Pakistan is committed to any type of humanitarian assistance that it would provide to the Afghan nationals or any of the people who are in distress in their neighboring state. And that is something that Pakistan is doing purely on a humanitarian and friendly basis. So there is nothing that anyone should frown upon. And the Pakistan embassy at the moment is actually one of the very, very important and busy places, because a lot of people are approaching the diplomatic corps to seek visas or exit permits to transit from Pakistan to go other places and so on, because at the initial instance it was a very gray situation as to what would happen in Kabul. But the immediate panic that people in Afghanistan were feeling with the march of the Taliban onto the capital city, that is somewhat simmered down, and I think that's
All
a
right, you
great
talk
thing.
about this element of panic within Kabul and other parts of Afghanistan when the Afghan Taliban took over. There is still that element of desperation, of despair in certain areas of Afghanistan, including in Kabul, by a certain segment of society that is, of course, being highlighted by the Western media. Do you feel this has any significance? Do you feel that the people who are, have certain questions in their mind will be relieved in the days to come, or do you feel these apprehensions will continue to remain?
It entirely depends on how the Taliban Shura and people in Kabul react to these things. The Taliban have given assurances to people, and I hope they keep their promises, and they continue to invoke confidence into people. You see, in any conflict situation or a near conflict situation, this element of uncertainty, this feeling of insecurity, what would happen to us, what would the people do, because a lot of people are looking at the Taliban's initial march in the 1990s in Kabul and what all had happened. So people have that fear in mind, and because of that fear, there's a lot of panic. But the good point is that this time round, the Taliban have not done any of those things, and that makes a lot of things better for the Afghan residents, not only Kabul residents, Afghan residents altogether. But we have seen a lot of desperation in people. People have fallen off aeroplanes and so many other
Of
things, which
course.
are some very tragic incidents. But again, the fact is that I think the Taliban unfortunately carry a lot of historical baggage that would take time for people to be comfortable about, that
All
they
right.
don't need.
Finally, Dr. Saiba, you talk of the historical baggage. What about the questions that the US media is posing to Joe Biden, or what the other the media are talking to the Europeans, or of course the United Kingdom. And also, what about the United Nations? Antonio Guterres also had to say something about it. He said the only thing that he feels is positive is the fact that this new regime of the Afghan Taliban wants to have good relations with the international community. Do you feel this will continue to remain in place, this relationship, this endeavor to strike a good bond with the international community, including the United Nations, by the Afghan Taliban?
It's going to be a two-way traffic. To be very honest, if the Taliban are taking 2 steps forward, then the international community also needs to take at least half a step forward. They must also realize that suddenly leaving Kabul and Afghan people in a lurch, going back and giving controversial statements from the comfort of their home grounds is a very easy thing to do. But they should have stayed here, especially the Western powers, led by America, and not deserted the Afghan people in the middle of the night and not owned them up. And now if they're trying to pull the entire blame on the Taliban, or for that matter on Pakistan, that they haven't done more, they need to do more for the Afghan people. It is something that the Taliban have done. We have no hand in that. That is an extremely ugly situation, because that makes people a lot more despondent. So I think there has to be some effort carried out by the international community. And tomorrow, when there's an inclusive government, the US would have no reasons whatsoever to hold back Afghanistan's revenues or its reserve money. These things are something that the international community really has to look into.
All right, so international community has really, put, as you said, at least half a step forward if the Afghan Taliban are putting 2 steps forward, because without this cooperation between the two sides, nothing concrete will happen in the future. Thank you very much, Dr. Salma Malik, to have joined us, to have talked to us about the latest situation in Afghanistan. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, of course, concerns China's increasing role in the region after the pullout of the US troops from Afghanistan. How is this going to play out in the future? More in the following report.
The botched US withdrawal from Afghanistan has drastically transformed strategic calculus of South Asia and broader region. Owing to hastily shifting geopolitical tectonic plates, some ambitious great powers are poised to fill the security and economic vacuum in Afghanistan. The incessant engagement of China regarding crystallization of peace and inclusive political settlement in war-ravaged country exhibits that Beijing would play an active role in post-American Afghanistan. As the United States departs Afghanistan and Kabul falls, China has reiterated its resolve that Beijing would continue to support Afghanistan in its peaceful rebuilding and provide assistance for its economic and social development. Since stable and peaceful Afghanistan serves the best interest of China and regional countries, Beijing has categorically declared that it would grant diplomatic recognition to Taliban rule in Afghanistan only after an open, inclusive and broadly representative regime is installed. Furthermore, Pakistan and Chinese national interests conspicuously resonate regarding Afghanistan, and thus both countries played a role of honest broker to avert catastrophic consequences of American-Afghan debacle. Sensing striking convergence of interest in Afghanistan, Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi emphasized that China and Pakistan should strengthen communication and coordination on Afghan issues. During a telephonic conversation with Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, Wang Yi suggested that China and Pakistan need to bolster coordination in order to facilitate stable political transition in the country. Moreover, in order to prevent Afghanistan from becoming hotbed of terrorism, both countries acknowledged that continued assistance to Afghanistan in its fight against terrorism serves best interests of the region.
So what's the best interest of the region? How important is China for the region? To talk more about this, we've been joined by Syed Muhammad Ali. He's the Director of Strategic Affairs at CAS and, of course, of Foreign Affairs strategist and analyst. Thank you very much, Syed Muhammad Ali Sahab, to have joined us. First of all, we know of the importance that China has in the region. We know how China is endeavoring to make this part of the world a stronger region for others to emulate. But now that the US is evacuating or almost has evacuated from Afghanistan, how much importance should you give to the role of China as far as not only strengthening this region but also Afghanistan is concerned?
First, thank you, Umar, for inviting me to my favorite show. Secondly, I think China is very important for 3 reasons. Number one, not just in the context of Afghanistan, but on the world stage, I think China is beginning to make an impact and make its presence felt at the global level. With be it the COVID crisis, you see the huge impact that they created by sharing its technology and vaccines with the rest of the world. Secondly, they have been consistently, despite their economic and military rise, followed a policy of non-intervention in other countries, which many Western countries accuse them of or suspect they could do in future. But they have a vision of peaceful neighborhood based on mutual respect and non-interference in the domestic affairs of the other countries. Now, in line with the second point is the third point. Then when you look at Afghanistan, China's policy towards Afghanistan is also an extension of its fundamental core values, which are essentially mutual respect, non-interference in other countries' internal issues, particularly political affairs. So, in line with this principle of Chinese foreign policy, they expect that the new government, however it is formed and whoever it represents, enjoys the trust and interests of all the stakeholders.
You talk of trust and interest of all the stakeholders. Yes. That's a very important point. Yes. Now, let's go back a little bit. And when the Afghan Taliban delegation went to China, they had very fruitful discussions with the Chinese leadership there. They also give their assurances that all such elements that are against China will not be made to stay in China or exercise their power. Then on the 16th of August this year, China said it was ready for friendly relations with the Taliban after the takeover of Kabul by the Afghan Taliban. And then, of course, the Taliban spokesperson who says very recently that China can contribute to Afghan development. Are we seeing the future of China and Afghanistan as a very strong player or a group of players that is going to kind of be very important for the entire region, including for Pakistan?
I think future of Afghanistan is very important for not just this region, but particularly for China. How and why? Let me briefly explain. China, as I earlier pointed out, does not want to interfere in the political affairs of Afghanistan, but it expects that the Afghan leadership that emerges after this transition period, and then they expect that there will be peace and stability, and whoever represents Afghanistan enjoys the trust and respect and aspirations of all the communities and stakeholders of Afghanistan. And once the critical factor or the litmus test for China to offer its economic support, some economic relief, investment would depend heavily on the fact and the ability of the new Kabul administration to achieve peace, political stability, and only then China, in line with other countries, they are closely, as your report rightly pointed out, it is in close and frequent consultations with Pakistan, with Russia, with Iran, and with other countries as
Central
well.
Asian countries.
With Central Asian as well. They are very concerned because the future of Belt and Road Initiative, the future extension of CPEC, you know, there is a project that there will be an extension of CPEC in which one highway will link Peshawar with Afghanistan. So this will be very important. So the future of BRI, the future of CPEC is heavily contingent upon the new Kabul administration able to enjoy the trust and respect of all stakeholders and achieve peace, security and stability as soon as possible. Once that happens, I am sure that China cannot afford the new administration to be weak and vulnerable enough for Western coercion or exploitation, because it is in China's own interest that it offers the economic support that the the people of Afghanistan badly deserve
now the
and have been
support,
deployed,
yes.
denied for the last 42 years.
This economic support that you talk about, the US gave trillions of dollars in the past 20 years, but it has never translated into economic stability of the people. In fact, we don't even know where that money has gone. Maybe some with the previous rulers of Afghanistan. But don't you feel China would need assurances from the current government in order to help it economically and to further stabilize the country, that this current administration will not act as the previous ones did?
Absolutely. I think three things are very important. Number one, I'm sure whoever invests in the future of Afghanistan, particularly China, would learn the lessons and from the mistakes made by the previous investors. Secondly, I'm sure, and as is evident from the significant, tangible and substantive investments made by China as part of over 60 countries as part of the BRI, they are going to look carefully at how the recipient country behaves. Are they badly governed or well governed? So the litmus test is not just the amount of economic commitment that China can or probably will make towards Afghanistan, but also again the ability of the new Kabul administration to govern the country in an efficient manner, to be able to absorb, actually develop a political system superior than the one they are replacing, in order to meet the aspirations of the local people, in order to remove and address the concerns of the international community, and also to meet the challenges that they face and absorb that money in a transparent manner and convert that into hope, opportunity and improvement in the quality of life of the Afghan people. Because without that, I don't expect China will just be doling out cash and
because they need assurances in return.
Absolutely. They need transparency, they need accountability, and the terms and conditions I'm sure will be quite stringent, and I hope the new administration will be able to meet those expectations. Because as you have rightly pointed out, it's not just that $2 trillion were wasted, but frankly, where has that money gone? It is not reflected. More than $140 billion of that, according to the US Audit Department report, was allocated for the infrastructure development. So where is the infrastructure? India keeps boasting about the so-called $3 billion investment. The US official Department of Audit reports that over $140 billion were allocated for infrastructure development. So where is that infrastructure? So that means if the system is corrupt, if there are loopholes and there is lack of transparency, then the amount of money is not the issue. The issue is that transparency, accountability and efficiency of that political system to absorb external funding and convert it into a transparent, effective governance model that meets the expectations of the international community and also the hopes of the Afghan people.
Now, both Pakistan and China, Syed Muhammad Ali, are also looking forward for the Afghan Taliban to have meaningful discussions with the other Afghan factions. This was also reiterated in the talk that Wang Yi, the Chinese Foreign Minister, had with our Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, in which he said that both countries, that is Pakistan and China, encourage all the Afghan parties to strengthen solidarity. Do you feel this is achievable in this current circumstance?
I think that is the most critical question, that how the new administration in Kabul takes shape. Will it only reflect the ideology and the way of life that Afghan Taliban aspire, or will it be a compromise in order for the greater benefit of achieving peace and stability in Afghanistan by showing some flexibility and tolerance, by accommodating and sharing some sort of symbolic power with other communities and stakeholders. And that's why I think the role of Pakistan is critical. So I think two processes are afoot right now which are very critical and decisive. One is the process afoot within Afghan territory, in which the Afghan Taliban and their different representatives like Mr. Anas Haqqani are meeting other people like Mr. Abdullah, Mr. Karzai and others. So there is an intra-Afghan political reconciliation process afoot right now. Yes, within Afghanistan. The second is what just happened in Islamabad, and that indicates that Pakistan is pivotal in both these processes. I think my friend Dr. Salma just mentioned, and I overheard her in the previous section, that Pakistani ambassador Mansoor Saab is very active. Yesterday he met the Chinese ambassador in Kabul. He also met the Russian ambassador, and he is also meeting the Afghan leadership regularly. So he is also playing a very important role in steering this process within Afghanistan, and Pakistan's Foreign Office is also playing that role in Islamabad by inviting all the other stakeholders and representatives of other communities and schools of thoughts that they also need to show flexibility and accommodation in order to reduce the misperceptions and move beyond the baggage of history. And let me reiterate this. Perhaps this vindicates Pakistan's stance on two accounts: that there is no military solution to Afghan instability.
That has been reiterated time and again.
Absolutely. And secondly, Pakistan is critical to both intra-Afghan and inter-Afghan and interstate dialogues. And Pakistan is leading that and steering that process. And Pakistan is encouraging both the Pashtuns, non-Pashtun elements to show flexibility so that a normal, stable, peaceful Afghan nation state emerges and learns to recover from the baggage of history.
Exactly, and that is so important in this day and age when since decades the Afghan people have not seen peace, stability, happiness in their everyday lives. We would all want to see not only the people in Afghanistan be happier and economically stable, but also all those refugees that are in every part of the world, including the millions that are in Pakistan, that they can go back to their homes and live a comfortable and normal life.
I mean, Umar, look, I mean, for 42 years, a generation has grown up in this warfare and conflict environment. They have never seen hope and peace. So the onus is not just the ability of Afghan Taliban to conquer the entire territory with lightning speed, but also their ability to achieve two things which will be more difficult than their war successes. One, to convert their military victory into political accommodation and acceptability by, accommodating all the other stakeholders, and also reducing and removing the misperceptions attributed to them by the international community. If they can do it, I think this will be a huge achievement and augur well for this region and allow Pakistan as well to benefit through the success of CPEC and regional connectivity, and transform its foreign policy from based on geopolitics to geoeconomics.
Inshallah, we hope that we see good days ahead as far as Afghanistan is concerned, as also the relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan and China and Afghanistan. Thank you very much, Syed Muhammad Ali, Director of Strategic Affairs of CAS, to have joined us.
Thank you.
Let's go to our next segment, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns Rashid Minhas Shaheed. Today is his 50th Martyrdom anniversary. Nishan-e-Haider recipient, the youngest also recipient, and also from the Pakistan Air Force. More in the following report.
The 50th Martyrdom anniversary of Nishan-e-Haider recipient Rashid Minhas is being observed today. Born on February 17, 1951, he remains the youngest officer to receive the Nishan-e-Haider award and was the first recipient of the highest honor of gallantry for the Pakistan Air Force. On this day in 1971, as a pilot still under training, Rashid was taxiing out a T-33 jet trainer for takeoff when a Bengali pilot instructor, Flight Lieutenant Mataur Rahman, forced his way into the rear cockpit. In mid-air, Rahman knocked out Minhas and seized control of the aircraft, proceeding to head towards India. Upon regaining consciousness, Rashid did the only thing within his control and forced the plane to crash just 32 miles from the Indian border, deliberately sacrificing his life for the honor of Pakistan. Today, the nation remembers with reverence the bravery and the supreme sacrifice of the national hero. DG ISPR Major General Babar Iftikhar said in a tweet that in line of duty, Rasheed Minhas had lived up to the great traditions of the Pakistan Air Force when it came to defending the motherland.
We all pay homage to, of course, this wonderful and resilient and courageous person from the Pakistan Air Force whose 50th martyrdom anniversary whole Pakistan is celebrating today. Let's go to our next segment, ladies and gentlemen. The incident at the Minar-i-Pakistan very recently calls for a lot of introspection and a lot of questions that we need to ask ourselves. A, why do we always blame the victim whenever any such incident happens? B, are we not educated enough in order to make our children or our brothers make them understand the value of women and make them understand how to treat women in society? Do women need more protection in society from us, from the administration? A lot of question marks emanate because this is not just the Minar-i-Pakistan incident. There are also so many incidents in the past that have happened in the last few months that call for a lot of introspection. More in the following report.
The implosion of gender-based violence against women exhibits deeply ingrained sexist, oppressive societal order in Pakistan. The shock and horror of barbaric Noor Muqaddam murder was still palpable when another harrowing saga of dehumanization and plunder over women jolted the country. A female TikToker was horrendously sexually assaulted and violated at Minar-i-Pakistan on Independence Day by an unbridled crowd of approximately 400 men in broad daylight. Adding insult to injury, the victim of this heinous sexual terrorism was subjected to maliciously orchestrated character assassination and victim blaming on social media. Though human rights activists, politicians, celebrities, Amnesty International and conscientious people across Pakistan expressed their anger over the assault, but their anger was trivialized by a majority which believed that women who dare to reclaim public spares deserve this treatment. The culture of victim blaming is not new when it comes to growing crimes against women in Pakistan. Because of its past is precedent. The appalling incidents of Kandil Baloch murder, Zainab rape and murder, motorway rape case and Noor Muqaddam murder culminated in victim blaming by significant segments of society. The budding accounts of rape, murder and sexual harassment against women, followed by pointing cursing compass against victims, not only depicts the rampant sexism and misogyny, but also unravels sheer moral bankruptcy of society. These vexing incidents expose ramifications of objectifying and dehumanizing one gender in patriarchal social orders, where there exists tacit understanding that women who dare to live or challenge the oppressive structures deserve to be plundered. Crimes against weak and vulnerable serve as alarm bells, predicting degeneration and decay of a society. A Karachi-based organization, War Against Rape, estimates that less than 3% of rape cases lead to convictions.
And finally, let's talk about Prime Minister Imran Khan, who has praised the hero cop from Sindh to have saved a man's life from a train. We're going to show you the visual, of course, very quickly. And of course, this is Constable Jamal Kalhodo, who on the Pakistan Day, that is 23rd of March, saved a man who fell dangerously close to the platform as the train passed through the railway station. Now, Prime Minister Imran Khan lauded the work and, of course, the dedication of this police personnel. He said, this is where duty becomes sacred, admiration for the commitment of the young policeman to serve the people. Also, he has said, we have decided to honor Constable Jamal Kalhodo for his dedication to duty. If anyone saves a life, it is as though he has saved the lives of all mankind. So this is, of course, an excerpt from Surah Al-Ma'idah that our Prime Minister Imran Khan stated. It is very important to laud people whose services can be seen by people all and sundry, and these are people who have become role models for so many others to follow suit. Pakistan is a wonderful place to live, and it is just we need to move in the right direction and get the right leaders so that we can, of course, take them as role models. And of course, this police constable, Jamal Koloro, is just one of those many examples. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. This is the last day of the week, so we'll see you inshallah on Monday with new stories and segments. Till then, stay safe, follow the SOPs, get yourselves vaccinated, and above all, ask yourself, am I doing my responsibility as a man, as a brother, as a father, as a son, correctly towards the women in our society? Allah Hafiz.